first of all, what is it? So a lot of people who came into comics in the last 5 years or so have a perspective on the New 52 that's kind of been shaped by how it played out at the end. But let me go back to the beginning. So in 2011, DC ran a series called Flashpoint, which was an event that kind of snuck up on people. DC was saying all along that this was going to be a very critical event, that this was going to, um, be a DC collector must-have, but it didn't have the word crisis in it, and people are kind of thinking of it, I think, like Emerald Twilight, that it was a Flash contained story, and there would be some shenanigans going on, but didn't kind of dawn on people that it was going to be what it was. And then it was announced kind of before Flashpoint was over. The word had leaked long before it was over that DC was going to be basically canceling all of their titles and relaunching them all as brand new number one issues, new creative teams, new editorial, kind of all new streamlined approach to their universe. And they were going to, in effect, Flashpoint was going to reboot continuity. So a lot of it's a lot of same items. Hal Jordan is still Green Lantern, and Barry Allen is Flash, and Bruce Wayne is Batman, and Clark Kent is Superman. But they were going to reshuffle everything, basically. That the origins would alter, the history of the DC universe would be from about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and it would be a more modern, more accessible, and there's the keyword, take on DC. And then it ran for about 5 years until DC went with Rebirth, which is a whole other video. But that the idea was, hey, we listened to your fans, we got off track, so we're bringing back what you loved about DC, and kind of erasing this New 52 as an experiment, or as a Heroes Reborn almost style approach. Except instead of taking like 1 to 2 years, we're gonna do it all in 5. So whatever. So New 52. So the goods. The goods part is it did accomplish the goal of giving them sales boost. It absolutely did. DC would go on to dominate the shelves for a while. New 52. The people forget that in the beginning parts of that relaunch, it was handily beating Marvel. It was doing a very, very effective job in getting DC back on the map and doing very strong. And then sales began to peter out and tank. It also did a very effective job, or DC did an effective job of reaching out to comic news sites and writers and opinion pieces, and building kind of the whisper community, if you will. Except not whisper, but the reviewers. It built up a lot of people at IGN and other places that had fairly strong comic editorials and comic reviews, and dominated with pro DC opinion. They gave out a lot of free comps. They really, really pushed on that social media presence so they could have the online opinion in their favor. A lot of people have either forgotten or didn't realize this, but it's true. They dumped a lot of variant. They put variant copies. I know one guy who did a bunch of reviews over on one of the big news sites was getting kind of some specialized merchandise and just a ton of free stuff in order to promote and hype the book. And to be clear, nowhere in the agreement is like, we'll give you free stuff, you say nice things. I mean, that was the wink wink aspect of the deal. But it was, hey, we respect your voice, and we're going to give you comps, and we'd love it if you would review our books. And when you're given something for free, and you'd like to keep getting something for free, you tend to review things better, more positively, and that's what happened. So there was a good period of time for the New 52, kind of from launch, for a couple of years, where all the attention was pro DC. And it's funny to look back on it now, because there were articles written about DC books that were ridiculously positive, like should not be this positive. Like, some of those titles were good, and some of those titles were dreadful, but they were all getting really like, DC could do no wrong for a period of time. And so that's a positive. It's a positive in DC's camp for managing the news cycle. It wasn't reflected by the fans. There definitely were fans that liked DC, and sales went up because comic stores went in on this new accessible line, and there were a lot of people brought into stores who did find it easier to just hop on and go. And we'll talk more about that in a second. But it was positive for fans for a short bit of time, and then, like anything, after about 6 issues or so, that bubble kind of popped. So it popped quick, but the sales kept going for a couple of years as collectors, fans with a collector mindset don't hop off titles easily. But the grumbling and the I don't like this, beyond just the core fans who are upset that DC renumbered everything and rebooted their continuity, the grumbling really kicked in about 6 to 9 months after New 52 launch, and then just increased until it tipped things over again. Um, the interesting part about New 52 is that it had a lot of controversy, not right out the gate, but it was a sign of things to come in the sense that what people got ticked about, and would write, the people who weren't getting the free comps at the free comics, were certainly kind of stirring the pot with a bunch of things. One of the biggest ones was the lack of female creators. And when I say stirring the pot, it wasn't an invented outrage. DC's female creator rank went down somewhere around 2 to 3%. A couple news sites said 1%, but that was, you're counting very weird and wrong. That's more to make a point. But 1%, 2 to 3%, it's still astronomically low. And so that allowed things like, Gail Simone became a very not power player, but became the token writer that was utilized there as the no. See, it's not all men. It's like we got this one, and so that probably helped her survive through some controversy about her that was going on at the time. There was a lot of kind of rumbling about and whether fair or not. I've never gotten to the bottom of, there's been complaints about her professionalism and kind of her work ethic, but those have always felt a little, what's the word, churlish, or they've never felt on the nose. They felt a little bit like people who don't like her, grousing about her. And I know, I don't know how tangled up this is, but there were some female creators within her network early on who I think were irritated that Gail Simone got the position she got in the New 52 with Batgirl, and was promoted above some of the others. So there's some jealousy that also kicked in there, and then some of those creators started, putting out some rumors and other things, and now seem to have gone back to being part of the club. So I don't know. I'm so confused by the comic networks of people who are like, there's buddies, and then one of them gets successful, so then they beat each other with sticks for a while, and then I don't know what happens there, but then they all become friends again, and then somebody else gets successful, and there's revenge. It's a very that aspect of comics is always really odd to me. But anyway, so the lack of female creators really got some steam after a while, and that caused DC to kind of get very flummoxed. Didio made some pretty crazy comments about female creators in comics, and like, what do you want? Just, I remember there's this outburst that went on. People always go for the David Gabriel, what is diversity comment for Marvel. And Didio made a lot of comments back in like 2012, 2013 that were just kind of nuts if you go back and look at him. I mean, comparatively, he got off easy, given some of the other stuff that was going on. But there was that, and then there was this kind of ongoing buzz, and I don't know if this hit fans so much. I mean, people heard about it, but nowhere near some of the other controversies around editorial interference. And it kind of started with there are different rules for different people. And I think the one that got some public attention was the Grant Morrison, George Perez kind of not feud, because I think the two never really disliked each other. But Morrison, who was coming off a very successful Batman run, and was seen as kind of one of these elevated writers, who was kind of approaching Neil Gaiman type territory of being kind of above the fold of writers who are crossing over, writers getting TV deals and everything else. So Grant Morrison took over Superman, and he took it in a very kind of Grant Morrison direction, a very different take. and George Perez was on the other Superman title. And there was clear from like right from the outset, even though one title was set earlier in history than the other, Perez had the misfortune of being the latter title, the one that was Morrison's was earlier in time, and Perez's was later in time. So every now and then Morrison would do something in his title that would lead, like, outwardly conflict with what Perez had done. There's a lot of chaos there, and Perez got very, very irritated and ultimately left the title. And again, I don't think he was so much irritated at Morrison. It was more a what the hell is editorial doing? They're just kind of letting everybody do whatever they want, and there's no oversight here. Books are just random. And that comment got stirred up a ton of places. Over Rob Liefeld's work, there was talk about editorial giving him a pass, and then there was more around, Scott Snyder was kind of developing his own little world, and then some writers were reportedly jealous about that, and so there's just a bunch of complaining that went on, that editorial was asleep at the wheel and or giving some creators a free pass to kind of do whatever they wanted and have no oversight against them. And then other editors were just getting browbeaten about changes, and you need to do this, you need to do that. And for a creator, and especially ones that are doing work for hire contracts, editorial coming in and saying you have to change, you have to do this or that or whatever, it's money. You're basically taking money out of their pockets for kind of reshoots without pay in a lot of cases, or if there is pay, like really low pay. So it's it's costly. And so if you start to get the feeling like the editor is just screwing around, then not only is it taking money out of your pocket, but you're also bothered as a creative person. It goes wrong in a bunch of different ways. The other thing that the New 52 did is it folded in Vertigo characters and Wildstorm characters. The Vertigo characters were kind of well loved, whether it's Constantine or other elements. It felt like they were starting to play around with Vertigo books in a way that irritated kind of those classic fans. And with Wildstorm, you had less of kind of the old Wildstorm fans. There's just not as much history built up there. But you did, was like, why is Grifter suddenly in all these things? And it felt like an awkward shove of these two universes together. And it also felt like they never fully committed to it. It's like Amanda Waller is now both thin and was part of Team 7. There are parts of it that made no sense. I think I've got that right. My memory is that time period was weird, and like I said, editorial was also not paying a lot of attention. So in one book, they'd establish like, hey, here's this Wildstorm character. They were always part of this team, and then another book, it's like, nope, they're they've got Martian Manhunter was one of those characters. It was like it is impossible to tell kind of what the plan is with Martian Manhunter. Is he a traitor? Or he was hanging out with Stormwatch, but then Stormwatch was kind of the authority, but not really. And then he was a member of the Justice League, but not the Justice League that was formed. A latter version that we know. It got to be very difficult to tell what people were thinking. There were a couple standout books. Like I mentioned, Scott Snyder managed to establish himself as a megastar during this period. He had done some work before the New 52, but it was his work on Batman that just cemented him as one of the hottest writers of all time that came during that time. Wonder Woman had a very divisive arc to classic Wonder Woman fans, but it also was a very popular, very strong selling arc that they haven't really been able to capture since he left the book and since they've walked away from it. Cliff Chang, of course, doing Paper Girls and has really done a lot there. And there are a couple other ones. There were some interesting moves that were made. There was a lot of controversy, I guess, also around, for lack of a better word, the treatment of women. So female characters, the accusation was they were far more sexualized. Kind of going back to the 90s, you have Catwoman and Batman, like, just screwing on the top of rooftops and getting naked. You have Harley Quinn's outfit goes for, kind of hot topic slut, I think is probably the best. I don't know, maybe that offends somebody, but it's put it this way: when Hot Topic started selling Harley Quinn outfits there, the cosplay was dead on. Like they didn't have to do much. They just they put the Daddy's Little Monster on a T-shirt, and that's more for the movie. But there was very little effort that Hot Topic had to do to get themselves ready to go for all that Harley Quinn cosplay going on. I personally thought that Swamp Thing and Animal Man had really good runs during that period. Kind of forgotten runs, but I thought they were quite good, strong. There were a lot of things that the New 52 did. A lot. It was very much an experimental phase. That in the end, obviously, it didn't hold. DC kind of, as sales were dropping and people were getting more and more irritated by the direction of the New 52, they launched into Rebirth. But I think, DC, to this day, I don't believe DC really understood what worked and what didn't work about the New 52. And I think they look at that as a, initial success and then failure. And they don't, they like the initial success. And I think they're still, from reportedly Didio, still kind of would like to go back and almost, do the New 52 again. A lot of the elements that he put in place when it started up were he liked. And again, if the first year to 2 years of the New 52, if you're a DC and if you're looking at the reviews and things online, the world was good. You were kicking Marvel's ass, and you were selling books, and the reviews were positive, and you had the marketing machine humming, and there was there's no surprise that during that time period, the images of Superman and his new costume without the red underwear and Wonder Woman and everything, those were in stores. They were on food. They were on cereal boxes. They were everywhere. I mean, the hype of these iconic characters went out far and wide, and that was successful for DC. It's just that maybe the answer was editorial did let things kind of get out of control, and maybe some of the hiring decisions they made were the wrong ones. I'm not going to wade into the Gail Simone debate, but it's kind of a little bit, where there's smoke, there's fire. I think there was enough drama around. She was on the book, and then there was a lot of complaining and a lot of muttering, and then she was fired off the book, and then some other people brought in, and she was brought back, and then gone again, and then there's a zoo there around her as a creator, whether it's her or whether it's the editors at the time, or whether a bunch of people just don't like her causing drama. I have no idea, but it did. Those kinds of events started to eclipse what was the New 52, and it made it more about the creators than the comics, which is a whole other topic probably. But anyway, that's a little bit on the New 52. What do you think? Did you love it, like it, hate it? What titles were the standout books for you? And when the New 52 was kind of reverted or replaced for Rebirth, what do you miss? What parts did they get rid of that they shouldn't have, that you wish they'd have gone back to? Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notification. Follow me on social media at Comic Perch, and thanks for listening.